The drama surrounding Angel Reese breaking her silence didn't begin with words. It began with absence, with the kind of quiet that makes people forget, question, and eventually doubt. And then, without warning, that silence was shattered not by noise, but by dominance. Because while headlines were building around reactions, emotions, and narratives, Caitlin Clark stepped onto an international stage and delivered something far more powerful than talk. She delivered control. After months away from competitive basketball, there were questions surrounding rhythm, timing, and readiness. 8 months is more than just a gap. It's a reset, a disruption of everything that makes an elite athlete dangerous. And yet, when Clark returned in Puerto Rico for the FIBA World Cup qualifiers, none of that hesitation showed. There was no adjustment period, no visible rust. Instead, there was precision. Every movement looked intentional. Every decision calculated before the defense could even react. In just 19 minutes, she produced a stat line that didn't just impress, it rewrote expectations. 17 points, 12 assists, 0 turnovers. Not just efficient, but flawless. What made that performance even more striking was the context around it. This wasn't a friendly exhibition or a low-stakes return. This was international competition, compressed into a demanding schedule where teams had no time to ease into form. The United States entered the tournament expected to dominate, but early signs showed cracks in rhythm and execution. A veteran-led lineup struggled under pressure, disrupted by aggressive defensive schemes that forced hesitation and broke flow. And then Clark entered the game, and everything changed. She didn't just stabilize the offense. She transformed it. The pace shifted instantly. Instead of reacting to the defense, she dictated it. Passes arrived before defenders could rotate. Lanes opened before they were visible. Teammates suddenly found themselves in positions they hadn't even anticipated yet. It wasn't just skill, it was vision, the kind that separates great players from generational ones. And by the end of that game, the numbers told only part of the story. The real impact was in how the entire system bent around her presence. As the tournament progressed, that influence only expanded. What started as a breakout performance became a pattern, and what looked like a moment turned into a statement. Across 5 games, Clark led her team in assists every single time she stepped on the floor. Not occasionally, not situationally, consistently. Her minutes remained limited compared to traditional stars, yet her impact exceeded everyone else on the court. A plus-minus that dwarfed the competition. Efficiency ratings that confirmed what the eye test already made obvious, and a style of play that forced coaches to rethink their own decisions in real time. By the end of the tournament, the adjustment was complete. The system no longer tried to fit her. It revolved around her. Coaches admitted what is rarely said publicly, that the initial hesitation to start her was a mistake. That kind of admission doesn't happen easily in professional sports, where decisions are protected and narratives are carefully managed. But in this case, the evidence was too overwhelming to ignore. Clark wasn't just contributing. She was defining outcomes. And then came the recognition. Tournament MVP, historic records, and a level of dominance that extended beyond statistics into something harder to measure but impossible to deny. She didn't celebrate it loudly. She didn't lean into the moment for attention. She simply continued playing, as if the award was not the goal, but the byproduct of something deeper. That approach, that quiet continuation, it became part of the contrast that now defines this story. Because while Clark's performance spoke through execution, the conversation around Angel Reese was unfolding in a completely different space. Reese had built her presence on visibility, on energy, on moments that captured attention and sparked reaction. Her rookie season showed flashes of strength, particularly in rebounding, but it also opened debates about efficiency, consistency, and the nature of her production. Analysts questioned the numbers, dissected the context, and highlighted patterns that complicated the surface-level narrative. And as Clark's trajectory accelerated, those comparisons became unavoidable. Not because they were intentionally created, but because the gap between performance and perception kept widening. One player was stacking measurable impact across every level team success. Individual efficiency, historical benchmarks, well. The other remained at the center of conversations that often leaned more toward narrative than result. That tension reached a peak during the same week. Clark was dominating internationally. As records fell and recognition followed, Reese stepped into the spotlight with comments that reignited the debate. It wasn't just what was said, but when it was said. Timing matters in sports, especially in an era where every statement is amplified and analyzed. And in that moment, the contrast sharpened even further. One side was producing outcomes that spoke for themselves, while the other was trying to shape how those outcomes were interpreted. Beyond the court, the divide extended into the business side of the game. Clark's rise wasn't limited to basketball. It translated into influence, into partnerships, into a commercial presence that mirrored her on-court dominance. Major brands aligned with her not just because of talent, but because of consistency, composure, and the ability to represent something larger than individual success. Every performance reinforced that image, creating a feedback loop where excellence drove value and value amplified visibility. For Reese, the situation unfolded differently. Opportunities were there, attention was there, but the response from the market told a more complicated story. In modern sports, sponsorships are not just about skill. They are about perception, about reliability, about how an athlete fits into a broader narrative that companies want to associate with. And when that narrative becomes unpredictable or divisive, the consequences show up quickly. All of this brings the story back to its core contrast. This was never just about a single tournament or a single reaction. It was about two different paths unfolding at the same time, in the same league, under the same spotlight. One built on precision, consistency, and results that compound over time. The other built on presence, reaction, and a constant effort to remain part of the conversation, regardless of what the numbers say. As the WNBA season approaches, that contrast becomes the storyline to watch, because eventually narratives have to align with outcomes. The noise fades, the debates settle, and what remains is what actually happened on the court. And right now, the momentum is clearly moving in one direction, so the question isn't just about who said what, or who reacted how. It's about what happens next. Can performance continue to separate itself from perception, or will the conversation shift again? Will the gap continue to grow, or will it finally close when the games begin again? And most importantly, when this era of women's basketball is remembered, will it be defined by dominance or by the fight to be seen as dominant? If you've been following this story, now is the time to share your take. Do you think Caitlin Clark's rise is already redefining the league, or is there more to this rivalry than the numbers suggest? Where does Angel Reese fit into this evolving landscape? And can she shift the narrative moving forward? Drop your thoughts below, join the discussion, and if you want more deep breakdowns like this, make sure to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next.